Hey, peace, namaste. So we've been talking in the chat already about mourning and grief, Mourning, mourning and grief this morning. Jesus said, the living don't die, but I died twice. So WTF, we all know people die. His words sound like a contradiction because we know he died. He's the metaphor man. Let me unpack this for you so that you can understand yourself and your destiny. I'm going to turn off those frogs. There we go. Goodbye, frogs. And begin with the bell. The first time I died, I lived as my pure consciousness disembodied in the everlasting realm of beauty. Capital E, capital R, capital B, everlasting realm of beauty. And you will too, as do those you love, for whom you mourn. The living do not die. I'm Peter Panagore, MDiv, Yale Divinity School, a 2-time near-death experiencer, lifelong and full-time public mystic, conversational space creator, hoster of Mystic Tea Salon, and deconstructor of Christianity. I speak about universal mysticism with a Christian accent. I am not a believer. I know that I am known with a capital K, speaking from experience. And welcome to Not Church. No dogma, no doctrine, no bullshit. Just mysticism. I've been to heaven more than once. Today, we don't die. Mystical Gospel, Thomas 11. Let's get right into it. We'll meditate toward the end. In Thomas, Jesus said, this heaven, this earth, this universe, everything will pass away. Or he might have said, this heaven, this earth, this universe, everything will pass away. I don't know what tone he said, but everything will pass away. All things pass away. All things passed away after my body died while ice climbing in Canada. And I found myself alive with a capital A, in heaven, capital H. And years later, it was similar during my Kundalini awakening and Satori's in Connecticut. Each of our worlds and my own false identity will all pass away, and your false identity will pass away, and your world will pass away. But it says also in this passage, it says heaven will pass away. What do you make of that, you silly, silly man? I know, it's a troubling thing. He says earth and heaven will pass away. How does heaven pass away? I know, and I'll get to that today. But I remember, for me, when I died, the universe, the world, and I passed away. Heaven between passed away. Some other kind of heaven passed away too. And like I said, we'll get to that. But first, Maya, the illusion. It is actually, as far as it goes, an illusion, which isn't very far. The universe, not so much. Seems really, really big, but it's so much smaller and so much more limited. And it will pass away. If not now, when you die, maybe there'll be a contraction someday and the whole thing will shrink down to that infinitesimal size. Or maybe it all gets sucked into black holes. But there is one universe that will end, and that's yours. And that's mine. And they end when I died. So this world, it just doesn't go very far. And if you've had a similar experience, maybe a Kundalini awakening or some kind of satori or disappearance of the self identity, a loss of yourself, or maybe a time out of time where you lost sense of the world, please tell us about it in the comments. The more of us who speak about it, the more normalized in public it will become. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? Said Shylock in The Merchant of Venice. Yes, to the prick and the tickle. And mostly no to the dying part. My body died. Bodies die. Yours will. People and pets we love have died. They are ended here, and this world for them, as it was for me, was over. They may come to visit us, and we had a few of those in the chat this morning, and thank God for that. Thank heavens for that. Thank the source for that. Thank Allah for that. Thank Brahma for that. Thank the divine energy. Thank the universal self. Thank the universal quantum. The dead come to visit us to give us comfort and healing in our grief, to show us that life is eternal with a capital E. And we pray that they do. And we thank you that they have. But this is not a need for themselves. This is our need. They visit us for our sake. And maybe sometimes for their healing and separation from the world, maybe they have to offer forgiveness to move on. But the need really is ours, because they come to us and convey to us direct love, which heals us and helps us in our grief and transforms our lives and helps us understand that this is not the end and that they continue on and that they still love us. And our grief goes from this deep, sharp knife of a pain to something less sharp, still painful, still takes healing. But now we know that the dead do not die, but live. Now, all of this, the teacher said, passes away. All of it passes away. All that is temporal and material, temporary and beautiful, hellish and hurtful, passes away. Orgasmic healing with a capital O and capital H, orgasmic healing, wholeness, well being, and welcome await us. For the living, the awakened, the enlightened, the seeker, the believer, and the experiencer, we don't die. No one does. The non-believer, the atheist, the evil, the wicked, the good, the mediocre, the misguided, the misanthropic, the blessed, the holy, the good, the compassionate, the kind, the living, the mediocre, the agnostic, none of us die. In death, we discover that all of us live. But there, as is here, it's all about the light. The living here, the ones named by Jesus, he calls them the living, the awakened, are alive in the light now. If you had a mystical experience, if you had a visitation from the dead, if you had a kundalini or a satori or any number of other kind of mystical experience where you had a loss of self or an identification with the light, maybe an angel came to you and flooded you. Maybe you've meditated your way into this. But anyone who has an awakening experience, which can keep coming, and there's not just one of them, a being born again is not a one-time thing. It's a continual growth of being born and reborn and reborn. If you've had that kind of experience, then you are alive in the light right now. In death, the irresistible light with a capital I and a capital L, irresistible light, made me, helped me, offered me, showed me, invited me, welcomed me. to the fullness of life with a capital L, to where life really is, to what life really is, and how life really is. The living here in the world, he was talking, the awake when he spoke, the tuned in, begin to die to their identity here. This is the die before you die, so that when you die, you do not die. This is that thing again. When you tune in your frequency, allowing the radio waves of the divine to maybe awaken your kundalini, um, maybe you don't even tune in. Maybe it just happens to you. That happens too. It just comes by grace. People have spontaneous mystical experiences. But when that tuning in happens, then you begin to live here. The connection is made. And the afterlife, it begins right now. That's what awakening is. You become who you already are. That light that you already are shows itself to you. Now, I have no fear of death. I know I do not die. My body passed away the second time. When that was happening, I literally rejoiced. I was lying outside the yoga studio on my back in the grass. Today's my day. I get to go. Waiting my whole life to go home again. I was psyched. Death holds no sting for my own passing. Of course, I mourn. It stings when we lose someone. When I lose someone, I still sting. I mourn for those I miss. Like you, we mothers and brothers, husbands, cousins, children, friends, family. I miss those. I mourn for those who have gone home with a capital H to heaven, capital H, before me. But I know where they are. I know. You now know when a visitation comes from you and they communicate to you their own well-being, you know where they are because they show you. That's what the telling is. It's not just, hey, I'm gone over here and it's over there and you could see it someday. It's here. Let me show you some of it as much as you can handle. Now you know where they are. You've tasted it. And Jesus, in Logion 11, he continued and he said, in the days when you devoured the dead, in the days when you devoured the dead. What does this mean? By which he means when we incarnated into our bodies. The dead is paradoxically everything living. I know this is a hard thing to understand. But in comparison to heaven, in comparison to the divine light itself, everything here is pretty much dead. You remember when I talk about the darkness when I came back and the flatness and the two-dimensionality of it and the black and whiteness, and it's like watching a Mickey Mouse cartoon from 1920s, flick, 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 flick. Everything was less than hair. This is like, well, you've experienced it. People call this hell. It is a kind of hell. In comparison to heaven, everything here is really dead in comparison to where I was. Sure, yes, it's made out of the divine light, panentheism. Sure, yes, the divine light is inside of everything there is, panentheism. But comparatively, not so much. Compared to the afterlife, living feels like death to me, which is why dying feels like going to life with a capital L. This is contradictory to the way that the world sees it. The I who is me, the holy higher self, in spirits, carnate body, in body, inhabits my body, made to break, the moment it's born. This is death. This is dying compared to living in eternal, everlasting, blissful thinglessness of the consciousness of your own inner being that's divinely made of goodness and connected to the holy itself, because that's what you are. This whole process that we're talking about for weeks and weeks and months and years, it's about your divination, your redivination, your remembering your true self. Everything here, everything in this Maya is so temporary. And even if it weighs down on us, as it does, one of the things that I don't think that people grasp about NDEers or other people who've had an awakening experience of intensity is that it opens up empathy. And when the empathy is open and the world is in great suffering, that can dwell inside us. And it's not because we don't know, because we do know that all is well, will be well, and is well. It's because there's suffering in the world, and that suffering makes us feel their pain. I mean, anybody who grieves knows what I'm talking about. This thing here, it's made to break the moment we're born. If you've ever had a pet and you've loved a pet, you know the deal. 7 to maybe 17 years. Joy and fun and bliss and companionship and love. And then the break is coming. Now, contrarily, my unbreakable soul, your unbreakable soul, lives everlastingly. And this you'll see for yourself. Death rides on my shoulder. You can't see death right now. It's on my shoulder all the time. It's always with me. It's this close to me. It's this close to me all the time. Even though it takes years and years and decades for it to actually penetrate sometimes, but it's the experience. What I mean is maybe 3 times the charm. I hope 3 times the charm, maybe, but it's always this close to us. Right there, the veil. Peek right through the veil. That's what an awakening is. That's what living in heaven is. That's what it is bringing it here. But you're going to see for yourself, just as those for whom you mourn have seen for themselves. And then Jesus paradoxically says words that simultaneously use 2 tenses. He uses the present and the future continuous tense. Now, remember back to your high school English. You know what the present is. The future continuous tense. It's about says what it says, right? Think about it. He said, variously translated, when you are in the light, present tense, or when you will be in the light, future continuous tense. Because it's present continuous tense, but it's also continuous, so it's in the future. It's both these things at the same time. It's now and it's continuous. It's always continuous in the now, and it's always here present. The light is everlasting, present, and always continuing. And when you have an awakening or a visitation or an enlightenment or a satori or a kundalini or any of these things or any kind of mystical experience that makes you shine on your inside, you taste the everlasting continuance. And then finally in Thomas 11, he asks, when you are in the light, what will you do? What will you do when you're in the light? So when I was in the light, when I was entirely in the light, I surrendered. I was surrendered. I was welcomed and healed and made whole after death. When the light was, what will I do when I'm in the light? Oh, it's what I am in the light. I was healed and made whole. And in the Kundalini awakening and in the Satori's, when the divine enters into you and sweeps you up, uplifts you, so that you're no longer yourself anymore. That's what you'll do in the light. You'll radiate the divine light. In those experiences, my two-ness, my duality, he calls it two-ness. When you were two, my two-ness ended. But then he switches it around, asking, what are you going to do now that you're in the state of two-ness? So now suddenly he's talking about this being in the oneness of being, and now he's like, so what are you going to do while you're here? What are you going to do when you're in the duality? What are you going to do then? While you're in the duality, what will you do? If this is who you are, and now you're here and split into this two-ness, because the other part of this two-ness is you're still here, up in heaven. That's the main part of us. That's who we actually are. And then there's this other part of us. And this is our reality. And so we're kind of veiled in this side of this thing. What are we going to do while we're here? He's talking about oneness, and he wants to know how we're going to deal with it. Because he's not really asking, what are you going to do in the world? Are you going to get up and go to work? Are you going to... That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about, now that you're two, how are you going to get to one again? As for me, I'm going to seek the oneness. So as for the heaven, I remember in the beginning he said, heaven will pass away. The heaven of my imagination passed away when I died. The heaven of my concepts, the heaven of my understanding or misunderstanding. Just as the universe passed away, so did all my conceptions of heaven passed away. That's one meaning. Another meaning is that this universe itself is a heaven, a world, a dimension, a realm, and poof, it's gone for us. Sometimes things have two meanings. When I died, I became alive, and I remembered my true self, and you can too. So what will you do? What will you do? Let's center ourselves together, okay? This is an experiment today, putting it at the end, seeing how that goes. Getting right to the talk in the beginning. Let me know if you like that idea or not. So let's have 3 ohms, and then we're going to drop into our centering prayer practice. And if you're just joining us today on Mondays and Wednesdays, we're live at 8 a.m. Eastern Time for teaching and live meditation practice. To learn more about this, take a look below in the description. Here we go. So now it feels like maybe we should always begin with meditation, and I shouldn't put it at the end. It was an experiment. But thanks for being here. You can please like and subscribe. Appreciate it. Thanks for your gifts of support that make Not Church possible. Visit peterpanagore.love. Thanks for all of you who've been given for a long, long time now. And for those who've given recently, thank you. I couldn't do this without you. You can join our 3 weekly live centering prayer and Kryia yoga practices. Mystic Tea Salon is coming up at the bottom. You can see the note down there in the description. I'm available for counseling, conversation, and consultation. peterpanagore.love. Next week will be the Gospel of Thomas 12. I'm also thinking I should probably read these passages before I talk about them. I keep experimenting with forms like structures of presentation. Let me know if you want me to read the whole thing before we begin. So next weekend, Saturday, Spiritual Awakenings International Conference 2022, bringing us together, Saturday, June 11th through Sunday, June 12th. It's for free. Check out the link in the description below. I'll be leading the opening meditation session on Saturday for 650 registered people so far. See you there. Let's see what's going on. Hey, Sandy, thank you. Best yet. Oh my, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Put it at both, says Sue. Open and close. I'm going to take a note on that, Sue. That's a pretty darn good idea. Pencil. Meditation in both. I'll give that an experiment. Let's experiment. That's great. All right. I'm going to, oh yeah, the Shared Crossing Project. That's worth taking a look at. I'm going to go back up here and see what was being chit-chatted about. Skip it down. New merch idea. A shirt with a bull behind a big, oh, I love that. A bull. I'm drawing a bull. Big strong bull with a tail and legs and big eyes and a smile and a no circle. Here's my quick sketch. That's a great idea. T-shirt. I like it. No bull. No bull. I like it. Yeah, thanks. The power of love, nothing matches it. I feel it now with this gathering, all those gathered in his name, says Robert. I am thinking of our rabbi going to Father and making us a room. There are others like Yeshua to have known Father. They too have rooms. The path we have chosen is narrow, but also short. Repose carries us through the narrow path. Thanks, Robert. So when you're looking at someone and their body disappears and all you see is a hazy light in the center of their chest, does that count? It did for me. Made me think I might have been nuts, says Andrew. Yeah. Why wouldn't that count if you're seeing the hazy light from within them? Right, the heart light. There's all kinds of mystical experiences in the world. If it changed you, Andrew, and set you on a different path and had after effects that were leading you to the light, that continue your path, that encourage your path, let this be a sign unto you. Yeah. I had shared a death experience. I had a shared death experience as AM. When my mom passed in 2015, I saw deceased loved ones come get her and take her through a hole in space. I heard joyful music when this happened. It changed my life. Shared death experience. Why have I not mentioned that? Shared death experience. It changed Dan's life. He glimpsed heaven. He glimpsed the eternal nature of his mother, heard the celestial choir, the chorus of angels, the cosmic music, so many names for that of joy, and changed his life. That's a born again moment, as is when the dead come to visit us. Maybe I should talk about what it is to be born again. I'm talking about that all the time, though. Let's see. Thanks. I just hear thanks for someone else's. Dan, thanks for that. Would love to hear more about Dan, maybe in the Zoom. There you go, Dan. If people want to hear about your shared death experience in Mystic Tea Salon. I was in another room, but went completely out of body into what looked like outer space. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Dan. Nadine, thank you for those words. Today, my mother's first heavenly birthday. She passed away from this earthly existence 1 month ago today. My condolences, Nadine. But she is born again in a big way. I was so happy on my 5th day of COVID, and it pushed me to the edge. I thought I'm going home tomorrow. Same experience, huh, Jay? It's like, okay, so dying cannot be fun, but death? Oh, baby, I love death. Sorry. People don't like me to say that. But Jay, yeah, right, for sure. In my NDE, I spoke with my past mother, says Robert. I could feel my other past loved ones behind her. Everyone there has their own way of seeing. Thanks, Robert. Oh, you became a tea drinker after your experience, Dan. I must have missed what Nadine said. To be alive, we need to consume formerly living things to stay alive, so we are constantly devouring the dead. Oh, yeah, Jeff, that is totally true, too. That is 100% another meaning of this, and I'm glad you brought that up. Didn't think of it this morning when I was rewriting that, but that's totally true. Everything consumes something else to stay alive. Everything does. Thanks, Jeff. Vineyard work. I'm having very strong coffee right now. I had pretty powerful stuff this morning myself. Every powerful words from both of you, Jay and Robert, says Dan. Thank you. Wildflower. I'm an intern. Dan at Tiffany. Wildflower. Dan at Tiffany Wildflower. I'm an intern with the Share Crossing Project, and I did a Zoom interview of my experience with them and took about 2.5 hours to get through it all. It's a lot that leads up to it. Well, Dan, can you send me the link? We can put it up in a couple of different places. If you send me the link, I'd love to share that. Maybe at our on our private Facebook wall. You have to be a member of Mystic Tea Salon to be a member of that. And still missed stuff. I always wonder about dreams, says Robert. Some are awakening, some encourage. Dreams are needed for our soul. They connect us through the veil. Mine are always filled with love. Blessed are you, Robert. Oh, I do hope 3rd time's the charm, says Jay, is why why you have a do not resuscitate order. Me too, Jay. I got a DNR, do not resuscitate. I asked them this time because I wanted to give the old college try. I even went against my DNR. But I'm hoping the 3rd time's a charm. Amazing Dan, says Tiffany. I send you lots of love, says Dan to Jay. Even a plant-based diet means we have to kill. Yeah, everything kills. Everything kills. The Father always knows what's best, says Robert to Jay. Jay says, I thought you were going to say our concept of heaven passes away. It takes one to know one, right? Takes one to know one. Breatharianism. Yeah, says Violet. Yeah, that makes me laugh. That's funny. I mean, there are people in the history of the world who so I can't tell you who because I don't remember, but I remember some people trying breatharianism, and I remember some people not eating and still staying alive, but they're very, 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 very few. Gregarious frogs today. You can hear the frogs. I have everything closed. Well, that's not true. I have the high window open, but on the opposite side of the pond, so the frogs are loud. Best yet, says Sandy. Thank you so much. There's so much more I could have said too, as I I could have packed more into it. Yeah, read the passage of Thomas. I will read passage first. Read passage first. The trouble with that is, of course, is that I'll read my translation. That's what I'll do. I take a bunch of translations and I look at it through the lens of my NDE, as I do with all the other gospels and the words of Jesus, and then I kind of rewrite it. And I'll do that, David. Was that David who said that? Yeah, Jay. Thanks, Jay. Jay, David. It's a good idea. Do. These are my do. I've got a do list. Do. Both work for me, says Lynn. Oh, thank you very much, Dan. As soon as I think of it, I'll post it. I can post a summary today if you guys want. That'd be great. It certainly changed me, says Andrew. It happened 40 years ago, and I'm assimilating it. I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't felt it and had been tuned in to the same frequency. Years of heart chakra focus, right? That's the power of the practice, is that it makes you susceptible. It makes you more likely, more penetratable, it thins your veil. It thins your veil so that it's easier for the other side to open it. Not that it's hard for them. They can open any veil they want to, but the thinner it is, the more likely it's going to open. But it's all by grace. And you were ready for it. And that's why practice matters. We're here for a reason. Always be grateful for the moment. It's always use your time wisely and know that God sees everything and knows your every thought completely. Only humans can use free will to choose good over evil. Thank you, Colleen. I'm grateful that you're here too. Thank you for the super chat. Back to Jonathan. Only humans can use free will to choose good over evil. Only humans can choose to voluntarily accept and to overcome our hardships. In this way, we are less limited than God. Yes, we are less limited than God in our human and fleshed forms. That's faux show. 100%. For sure. For sure. However you say it, it's totally true. In our human forms, we have limitations. In our divine self, we don't. But we mostly live here in our limitations. When my mom was on hospice, she stopped communicating. Before she was nonverbal, we discussed her sending me a sign. After she passed, I said I wanted to know something that would let me know, says Dan. Well, my friends, Dan, I was a hospice doctor. You were, Robert. That's pretty serious work. Jay says, thanks, Dan. Father knows best, huh? But there are people around here like us to be neutral to God, always being Him. The sentient cosmos knows best. The sentient cosmos. Sentient cosmos. Like that language. All right, my friends. Let's see you at the top of the hour, 11 o'clock, Mystic Tea Salon. The link is below. We don't need to drag this out. Peace and love, everybody. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for liking the video. Tell me what you think in the comments. Tell me the things I left out. If you're like, oh, you left this thing out, let me know. Let people know. This is a community effort. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Peace and love to you all. Namaste. I see you soon. One more note. I made a deal with an atheist that he will send me a text. My mom posted on her Facebook page a year after her death. Remember to have a person stop it upon your death. Oh, yeah. You're welcome, Tiffany. Remember to have someone stop your Facebook page. But I just gave my goodbye and I gave it again. Peace and love, everybody. Namaste. See you at the top of the hour, 11 o'clock. Mystic Tea Salon, Eastern Time. Link below. Bye, Dan. Peace, everybody. Peace out. Peace bless.